right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting discussion about drama. Yeah, as many of you have probably guessed at this point, um, I'm still coming up with what I want to do next for D&D deep dive, and I'm trying to figure out what my next series in there is going to be. It's either going to be dealing with some more unearthed arcana stuff that we haven't covered, or just going back to other subclasses that I haven't covered yet, from things like Xanathars and other stuff like that. Simply because I'm done with Tasha's. I really don't have anything else in there I want to really dive into. So for today, because I haven't done a drama video in a little while, probably my last one was about Critical Role. And I found this article about some drama involving Candlekeep Mysteries, which is my most recent thing that I published on D&D stuff I published on the channel. And I've read through an article from Belvlas Souls, which gets a lot of I get a lot of my D&D info from because they tend to be pretty good about getting it fast. And I have also I've also read both of the posts from the author that they to talk about in there, to try and get my head wrapped around what's going on. So to just give everyone kind of like a 1,000-foot overview, as I mentioned in my Candlekeep Mysteries review, Candlekeep Mysteries was as a collection of 17 different adventures that are written by, I believe, 17 different authors, or at least many different authors. I don't think any of them were written, or anyone wrote more than one, but I can't remember off the top of my head right now. And that was one of the things that I said was a strong selling point for it, simply because each author has a different approach to how they tell stories, how they develop challenges, and so it's a really interesting thing, especially for a dungeon master, because seeing how other dungeon masters do things can inspire your own style. So I really like that. However, it has been revealed as of the 26th. Which, when I'm recording this, is about a day ago, that one of the authors, and I'm going to horribly mangle your given name. I'm very, very sorry about this, but I haven't seen this particular name before. I believe it's Graham Barber, but he has an online handle called Panzerlion that I'm going to reference simply because it's easier for me to pronounce. That's all. So Panzerlion wrote one of the adventures, and funny enough, he was actually one of the adventures I was able to read pretty fully when I was getting ready to do my review. As I mentioned in there, I did not read every single adventure because these adventures are very, very text heavy. Even compared to source books, simply because there's just so much in there, and there's combat. So I didn't read through absolutely every one of them. A lot, especially the later ones. I just kind of skimmed through, got the basics of how the story would go, would look at an encounter or two and a few of them on maps, just to get an idea of what it was a little like. But the one that Panzerlion wrote is called Book of Cylinders. It was a 6th level adventure. And it was actually, I think it was the first or second one that I actually read, as I was just kind of thumbing through on my computer. I said, Book of Cylinders, this is interesting. And so I opened it up and I read it, and I thought it was a pretty interesting adventure. I didn't think there's anything wrong with it. However, Panzerlion has said that he has requested Wizards of the Coast remove his name from further printings, as he feels this adventure is not up to the standards that he would have, and he feels that during the playtesting and editing process that they changed far too much of it, and he no longer wants to be connected to it. And that's the 1,000-foot overview. Effectively, Panzer Lion has said, and he went on a tweet thread about it, and then he actually has a website where his other handle is POC Gamer. And so the website's pocgamer.com. It's a blog. And he wrote 2 different blog posts on it because he's really, really upset that what he submitted was not what was published. And he goes into other things as well. Like he talks about how he effectively did a little bit of marketing for them because people did interviews with him. And he talked about it before seeing the final product and stuff like that. But the main the main aspect of it is just this idea that he feels that it is no longer his work because the editing process changed it so drastically. Now, to give you an idea of how much they changed, and I'm actually going to go into some of the stuff he talks about, and I'm also going to, as someone that I was a local coordinator for the D&D Adventures League. I worked really closely with the Adventures League. I've got a bunch of friends that do playtesting for them, and the first 3 or 4 seasons of the Adventures League, we were playtesters. I had quite a few of the conventions that I went to, and the one that I ran, actually, we got to premiere Adventures, which was unfortunately effectively a final playtest more than anything else, because a lot of times Premiere Adventures would still have a lot of problems with them. So I'm very familiar with what makes a good adventure and what makes a bad adventure, especially for things like this, which are meant to be these little kind of self-contained one-shot style adventures. And after reading everything that Panzer Lion said, I think he went into this with an expectation that was not realistic in any way, shape, or form, and then was very much upset when it didn't happen the way that he imagined it was going to happen. And we've seen this. I've talked about very similar things like this in other drama videos, like the one way back when where there's a person accusing the Critical Role of not paying him for sensitivity work that he did, and other things like that. And I myself have seen this situation many times professionally, where people, especially for managers, someone will get promoted to management and think that it works a certain way, and then when they find out this is how it actually works, and the reason it works this way is because the way that you imagine it would ruin businesses. And I've seen a lot of people get extremely upset and disillusioned because their image of what a manager does and the actual job were extremely different. So I empathize with him, and I sympathize with him, but I really think in this particular instance, the fault was his, by having unrealistic expectations and effectively believing that he was allowed to do a lot of the things that you can't really do in this style of writing. So let's get into some more specifics about this stuff that he talks about. First things first. I will have links to the Bella Lost Souls article and both of his blog posts, so you guys can read it yourself. You can come up to your own conclusions as far as what you believe. But everything I've read here is dripping with distaste. I guess is the best word I can come up right now. As much as he's kind of trying to flirt with the line of, well, you know, they're not bad people. They just did a bad thing. He's not trying to villainize, or he claims he's not trying to villainize Wizards of the Coast. He 100% is writing a thing, and you can see it in his first post where he specifically has a section called Rules for Writing for Wizards, where he talks about, you know, do the absolute minimum, don't do this, expect that they're going to screw you over. He had a very, very bad experience, and now he's trying to punish them through his writing, which, again, very, very natural thing to do. And in his mind, he is absolutely helping other people not run into the same problems that he did, which is a good thing. However, again, his own experiences has flavored this so drastically that I think he has taken this way to a level and has inscribed intent that simply is not there. So the basics of it. Back into 2020, I believe, he was approached by Wizards. He was given their little, they have a little package that they give you that gives you things like writing templates and lore that you might need. And then they ask you for a pitch, and you send them a pitch. If they like the pitch, they'll take it. More often than not, you'll submit a pitch. They will say, hey, there's a pitch in here, but we need to modify it a little bit so it fits more with how everything else works. And you'll do, you know, a little bit of a back and forth, maybe one or two times, because they have a lot of people they're working with. And if you can get it to a thing that they like, they'll have you submit a draft. Now, the draft that he was supposed to do had to be maximum of 8,000 words. He was paid by the word. This is standard industry practice. Even Matt Colville recently had a Twitter thread where he talked about people working for his company and his publication, where I'm assuming he publishes adventures and things like that. I haven't actually read any of that stuff, but I read the tweet thread, and he talked about, yeah, it's paid per word. It's always how it's been, and that is how freelance writing works. This is not just an RPG thing. That's how you're paid for writing articles, newspaper, you know, whatever you do freelance, you're paid by the word. It is extremely rare to get paid by a article or something like that, simply because there's way too many ways for that to go wrong. So you paid by the word. So generally, you want to make sure you're getting close to the word count because you get paid more. His initial draft was 7,187 words. The final draft he submitted after getting editing notes and things like that was, and I just find this hilarious. I know it was not intended to be, but it's 69 words because I'm a juvenile. So yeah, the thing that was now. After you submit your final draft, Wizards of the Coast has a bunch more that they do. They have a bunch of playtesters. Like I said, I know quite a few of them. I haven't reached out to my playtester friends, but I'm pretty sure if I tried hard enough, I could probably find somebody that playtested this particular adventure. However, getting information about the playtest would involve them possibly breaking NDA rules, and so I'm not going to put them in that situation. But I know how playtesting works. So what happens is after they get your, quote unquote final, they will do playtesting, and they will also re-edit it into the things like that, because putting it in a collection of adventures presents more problems than just publishing the adventure itself. And so they would also have to trim things and change wordings and other things like that so that it fit with the style of all the other authors as well. Again, I mentioned this in Candlekeep. Each adventure feels different because it was written by a different person. However, if you open any page, they look extremely similar, and that's done on purpose. It is one book. If it looked like if it was one book and you just opened it up and it had 17 different crazy looking adventures that didn't have any kind of unifying themes or layouts or anything, it would be very confusing to read and use. So that was expected. And he kind of suspected it as well. However, now again, the final draft he submitted was 69. The actual stuff in the adventure was 5,686. So a little over 1,000 words had been removed. And this is his first point of contention, because he says that they removed all the plot and all of the really cool connections to Forgotten Realms lore and all this other stuff, and he didn't like that. Here's the problem with that. First things first, I have followed a lot of authors that have written Forgotten Realms stuff, all the way to Ed Greenwood, who created the Forgotten Realms. And the further away from Ed you get, and even Ed is not allowed to write what he wants, the less you're allowed to write that involves changing any of the lore or even really referencing really big historical events. I was before my anxiety got just so bad that I couldn't work anymore. I was actually going to be writing some convention adventures. There was a thing, I don't know if you can still do it, but one of the things you used to be able to do in the Adventures League was you could actually submit adventures that would be exclusive to your convention, but would be Adventures League legal. So you would have this very unique adventure, and then after the convention was over, you would actually sell them on the DM's Guild, so everyone could see it, and it would have your convention's name. It was a really, really cool thing. Part of that process was getting that little package of all the stuff you need to do and know in order to submit a thing. And one of the first things they mention is, okay, at this point, all of the adventures for the Adventures League that were not written by Wizards had to be located around the Sea of Stars. So it said specifically, all your adventures have to be set, or the Moon Sea, I think it was. All of your adventures have to be set here. You cannot set them anywhere else. You cannot travel to anywhere else. You're not allowed to say the things about other places because it's an official Adventures League adventure. This will become canon. And we don't want to have to tell our authors, like Troy Denning and the things like that they now have to worry about anyone that works for a convention changing things that their characters will have to deal with. So they limited us to a very small part of the Forgotten Realms and told us you're not allowed to do anything other than in here. Panzer Lion himself mentions that he connected everything that was going on in this adventure with stuff that had happened thousands of years ago in the Forgotten Realms, where he was connecting it to like the days of the thunder and stuff that happened before first edition D&D existed, before the Forgotten Realms were even a thing. This is all prehistory stuff that Ed described decades ago. And he decided that he was going to write this adventure that would reference all that, and it would explain how all of it would work. You don't get to do that. It would be like me writing a story where I mention that Drizzt's mother just happened to be one of the people that you meet during the adventure because you were sent back into the time for that. You don't get to rewrite or add lore to existing things. It's just not cool. Again, because it would become a massive problem because of how many freelance writers they have working for them. It's just not something that you can do. So they took all of that out. That doesn't surprise me. Again, I don't know what was in his little packet that he got, because again, he was doing a book. The one that I was doing was going to just be a convention-specific thing. So obviously we got different packets. But everyone I know and all the authors that have talked about it have all said they get very specific outlines about what they are allowed to talk about and what they're not allowed to talk about. And you don't go messing with other authors' lore. It's not a cool thing. So it absolutely doesn't surprise me that they took it out. And it is a little bit telling that Panzerline feels so angry that they took out this stuff that he probably shouldn't have put in there. Now, it was approved at first in, again, it was part of the final draft that he submitted, which more likely than not, again, because I know the people that do the final drafts and that, he assumed that meant, everything he wrote was gold. No, the person that tells you that, yes, you're ready to submit this, give us your final draft, has not read absolutely everything in there. And any lore in there, they probably skipped over, because their job is to make sure that this is an adventure that can be run, because the very next step is sending it to the playtesters. The playtesters will look at everything. They'll look at lore. They'll look at absolutely everything. And I would assume that the editors and everything like that are also looking at the lore. But the person he was talking to was not looking at his little lore and all the intricacies that he put in there. So this idea that, they liked it before, but they don't now, and that's even, no. That person probably never read a lick of the lore in there, because he or she, I don't know who his Panzerline specific contact was. They don't have time. Wizards of the Coast is working on like 2 or 3 books constantly, and Hasbro's just announced that they're going to start ramping up book releases. So they're massively busy. They didn't read it. If they had read it, they probably would have said, "Hey, you can't do this." Now, the other side of this, if you want to say, well, Jody, that doesn't matter. Maybe what he wrote, because I haven't read what he wrote. Maybe it was just references and it wasn't. Maybe what he wrote was fine. They could still just be being mean and evil. No, I know a lot of people at Wizards. They're generally not. I'm not saying every single person that works at Wizards is an amazing, wonderful person. They're not. There are some bad people that will work there. But Wizards as a company isn't. They're just not. So the other aspect of writing crap tons of lore, another thing he mentioned in there is he actually, they have a a frog race in there called the Gripply. There's a new frog race. It's similar to the frog race that they already had, but they're frog people. And he mentioned that he had player options so that players could play as Gripply. You don't put player options in a book like this. This is not a source book. I said that much in my review. So no, they weren't going to allow that in. I think they might have taken that out before his final draft. I can't remember. But he brings that up. Yeah, he says here the process saw the Gripply as a player race dropped. He brings it up over and over again in this, where it's like, well, it had this player race. You don't do that. And in a one-shot adventure, if you have a massive lore dump, the DMs that are running it won't give it to their players. You want to know how I know this? Because we had Adventures League Adventures that ran at my conventions and the other conventions that I just attended. And anytime there was a really, really massive lore dump, most of us would skip it because it didn't actually help us run the adventure, and it would simply make it more difficult for us to run the adventure in the short time we had allotted. A lot of times, these 4-hour adventures, you were given a 4-hour window to run them. And that's not actually enough for a 4-hour adventure, because part of that 4-hour window is getting everyone's information and bathroom breaks and chat breaks. So yeah, the players were not going to get that information. It simply bloats the adventure. And for one-shots, it's not that useful. It's significantly more useful to have a supplement that they can look at that has all this extra lore if they want to. But putting it in the adventure itself just pisses off DMs, because they have to comb through all of this lore that none of their players are really going to care about in a one-shot. And they have to comb through all of that stuff to find the stuff that they actually have to know to run the adventure. I cannot tell you how many times when I was running hardcover books that I would get really, really upset because they would have these long sections that were mostly lore, and then they'd have a single paragraph in the middle that was really important information. Especially since I homebrewed a lot, even when I was running book adventures, I homebrewed a lot so that the player characters are really important and part of this story. So putting all this lore in makes it significantly harder for it to translate to a homebrew setting. Now, but Panzerline does mention that when he approached Wizards after he saw the last thing, he said, "Why do you take all this stuff out?" One of the reasons they gave was like, well, we had to make it a little bit more generic so that people could run these adventures in non-Forgotten Realms settings. So he was aware of that. He was just upset that they didn't have him generify it. Simply because he feels that all the cool motivations for the bad guys were just thrown out and they were just evil. Well, the bad guys in the enemies are Yuan-Ti, and Volo's Guide to Monsters, I believe it is, has an entire section on the Yuan-Ti. So, again, I don't know what he wrote, but my guess would be he probably didn't contradict anything in the book, but probably caused some issues because he wanted two different versions of Yuan-Ti. There were good ones and there were bad ones, which still exist, but the motivations for the bad ones were just kind of taken away. There's tons of motivations for the Yuan-Ti in general in Volo's Guide to Monsters. So they already had motivation. Giving them a brand new, different motivation that isn't in Volo's Guide is going to cause issues, especially since, again, all of this is canon because it's published by Wizards of the Coast. So they're not going to let you write this stuff that they're going to have to deal with later on, going, well, wait a minute, which one of these is canons, and have to retcon something. So his first really big issue is the fact that they took out all of his lore and stuff that he really shouldn't have written, because you're not really supposed to do that. And they didn't ask him to make it more generic, which is just not something they can do. Again, and he mentions this is here. He says, yeah, I signed the letter that said that they don't have to contact me after I give them my final draft. And he says in there, they knew that he knew that they were going they were legally allowed to change whatever they wanted after it's submitted to meet their publishing standards. So he knew they could do that. But again, he went into this going, well, I am so special that they're still going to contact me. And this is not, I realize it sounded very, very harsh. This is not something specifically to Panzer Lion. This is something that I have seen this reaction many, many, many times. And this is something that that it always boils down to the person going, well, I understand that's how it's supposed to work for everyone else, but I'm special. I'm smarter, or I'm better at this particular job, or I have some defining feature that means that they have to treat me differently than they treat everyone else. It's again, it's not uncommon in any way, shape, or form. It is a recipe for disaster, though, because you're not special until you become Chris Perkins, or again, Matt Colville, Mark Humes, really, really big names like that. They're not really going to treat you as special. They're going to treat you the same way that they treat everyone else, which, with the interactions that I've had with other people that write adventures for the Adventures League, is not bad. It's not amazing, but it's business. That's how it works. Now, the other thing that he mentions in here, like 3 or 4 times, is they change the wordings in here, and he specifically he's very, very upset because of what he calls colonizer language, and he specifically brings out the word primitive. I'm not going to get into history discussions. I'm not a huge fan of the word colonizer in general, because it simplifies an incredibly complex the thing that had a lot of extremely bad effects on countless civilizations and cultures, and simplifying it down to just, oh, colonizers are evil, disgusting, horrible. No, things that they did were very, very, very bad, but in order to understand why it was bad, how it was bad, and how to not do it, you can't just lump every single person that was part of the British Empire as colonizers. It's an othering term that's meant to turn someone into a villain, and it doesn't help the discussion. So, other than that, he has a problem with the word primitive, which has been used in history to other cultures and the things like that. And by other, I mean taking a group of people and finding a way to kind of put them in this little box where you don't have to treat them the same way you treat people. They are others. They are not they're not in the same kind of bracket of respect or dignity that you would treat, people that are the same as you. Othering is a very, very common abuse tactic. It's an extremely common cult tactic. I'm not a fan of othering in general because it's always a negative thing. That's why I don't like the word colonizer. Or not. I don't like the word colonizer being used to other an entire civilization. Othering isn't good. So I understand the problem, the problematic issues with the word primitive, specifically when relating to a culture that was written by a person of color. It can be taken very personally. However, I read through the entire adventure. I actually read through certain parts of it twice, and I went back and reread through the entire thing specifically for this conversation. So I made sure I would not be wrong. In that, what was it? 5,686. Yeah, 5,686 words. In the 5,686 words of that adventure, do you want to know how many times the word primitive is used? Twice. So 5,684 words have nothing to do with that. And finding the two uses of the word primitive, I only see one that I would consider problematic, where it really didn't need to be there. I'm going to read both sections where they use the word primitive just to explain what I mean. So one is talking about trading post. Without getting too much into the plot, this particular trading post has become kind of a refugee camp because the Gripply have been chased out of their home, and so they made kind of a refugee camp, and the refugee camp has existed for a week, barely. They were kicked out of their homes a 10-day ago. So this is a brand spanking new thing. So first, the section is entitled to the trading post, and you have block text. If you're not familiar with what block text is or box text is sometimes called, is this text that's generally put in some sort of box or a block or something. It's differently colored, and this is stuff that as the DM you're supposed to read directly to the players. It is specifically written to be descriptive so that this is what the players know. So it starts with this block text. As the coastal mist clears, you get your first good look at the Gripply trading post. Ramshackle shelters are clustered around a large permanent building. The low rumble of many voices softly croaking can be heard as your ship pulls up to the dock where Gripply bearing weapons are waiting to meet its passengers. That's the block text. The next to the two paragraphs are just regular to the text, which gives the DM additional information they can use if players ask questions or to just kind of increase their descriptive abilities. The central structure of the trading post is a fortified stone and mud brick edifice decorated with the preserved carapaces and claws of giant crabs, where commerce is normally conducted. The ground around it, usually clear of construction, now houses a host of makeshift dwellings, and business has slowed to a standstill. The place looks and feels more like a refugee encampment than a trading post. The primitive shelters, there's the word, are the new homes of the Gripply, who escaped when the evil Yuan Ti came through their village in the search for the earlier group of serpent folk. All these individuals are non-combatants with no particular knowledge to be gained by communicating with them. So, the word primitive is used to describe the ramshackle huts that they made in less than a week at their effectively refugee camp. Not the people themselves. Nothing about this describes the Gripply. It's specifically describing their shelters. And another thing, and this is something that I have learned in my own descriptions, if you look at the word choice they use in here, I don't believe they repeat a single adjective in this entire two or the three or to two paragraphs. They do I believe they repeat ramshackle once in the block text, and then they might no, they don't. They use makeshift. They use as many different words as possible to describe these things to give you a much better picture. You don't want to repeat this as the same word unless that word has a very, very unless that word is a very important part of the text. You can even see when they reference the yuan-ti. The first reference is the evil yuan-ti, and then the second reference is earlier group of serpent folk. They don't even use the proper name of the yuan-ti twice because it's bad writing. You don't do this. So the fact that they use primitive is done on purpose. It is meant to describe that these are not meant to be permanent, really well done shelters. They are specifically supposed to be, things that they just threw up at a moment's notice because they weren't planning on being here very long. They were never planning on being here. None of this describes the Gripply whatsoever. And reading Panzer Lion's post about it, he makes this huge reference about how that's so problematic because it's colonizer language. No, the word primitive has been used as an othering word. Here, it is not. It is being used to adequately describe something. Primitive is a real word. It has been used in scientific papers. Today, it is being used in scientific papers. Primitive is not an evil word. If you use it as an othering word, yes, that is a bad use of it. But it is a descriptive word, and it describes these shelters well. It didn't call the Gripply primitive. It simply called their shelters, which they would be because they had little to no resources to build them and no time. Dear Lord, not everything has to be a massive deal. The second one, this one I'm not quite as okay with because this has been used in history in this particular way. And yeah, the only thing I can say is, again, I don't think this was done intentionally, but let me read it. This is a block text, so this one actually shows up in the block text, and this is way later in the adventure. And this is actually describing their original homes, not the camp. It says the simple domes of the Gripply's residences and storage buildings are spread haphazardly around the march. Mud brick with wicker roofs, they're modest affairs, primitively decorated with giant crab claws. Most are empty and show signs of abandonment. So there, I can kind of understand. Again, I don't see this as an othering to the term. To me, this reads as literary shorthand to give you an image of what they want you to see while having a very limited space to do it. Could they have chosen another word? I think so. However, again, this is an almost 6,000 word adventure. One poorly chosen word, I don't think ruins the entire thing. And specifically a sensitivity reader might have been able to catch that. However, again, out of 6,000 words, having a single poorly chosen word, even if you had a really good sensitivity reader, which I'm going to assume Wizards of the Coast has sensitivity readers now. They've been making a huge push And this particular adventure was billed as the idea bringing in a very diverse group. So if they didn't have some sensitivity readers reading this, I would be massively shocked. And the fact that none of them picked up on that word, to me, says that Panzerline is projecting his own views on that word, but because again, I read through the whole thing and I saw nothing. After he pointed it out to me, and I went and found this particular word, I went, yeah, maybe there was a different one. I can't come up with a better word to give a single word that will give you the specific mental picture that primitively decorated with giant crab claws will give you off the top of my head. But my my brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to, and I forget a lot of words often. So theoretically, yeah, that might have been something that they might have caught beforehand, or that they might be able to change afterwards on later printings. But one word out of an almost 6,000 word thing, and you are blowing up and want your name removed from it? No. This is something where you can go, hey, listen, I really have a problem with you guys using this particular word. I understand the first printing is out. Can you guys release an errata? Can you guys change it in later printings and use this word instead, and explain why? From what I have read in his posts, it doesn't. I don't see Panzerline specifically mentioning that he told them how to change that word. He brings it up quite a few times that this evil colonizer word is in there, but he doesn't specifically say that he told Wizards, "Hey, can you to change this word? I really have a massive problem with it," which is what you do in situations like this. Again, this is a lot of drama because someone had expectations that were unrealistic and then got very, very upset when they were not treated differently than everyone else. This is not a specific thing targeting Panzerline, because this is an extremely common thing. I have seen this happen so many times. I've seen it happen at conventions where I've had new DMs that I've had to take aside and go, hey, listen, this is what you need to do. It's like, well, no, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to run it this way. I said, no, you're not. This is how the convention runs. This is how we run Giga Games. I understand that you have different things that you want to do, and you've been, again, living in Wisconsin. We have people that can truthfully say, I played with Gygax. Gygax's house is like a 2-hour drive from where I'm sitting right now. And I've met Luke before. He's a really great guy. Luke is Gary Gygax's son. I believe, I might be wrong on this. I believe Luke was the one that played Melf. But again, I might be wrong about it. Anyway, I know a lot of people that have been to Gygax's house. So I had a lot of people that when I brought them in to conventions, they were expecting, because of their history with the game or because of their perceived skill as a dungeon master, that all the information that I gave them in the beginning, where I said, this is how things are going to work, didn't really apply to them because they were different. They were so special. And the fact of the matter is, they can't be, because as soon as you start making exceptions for people that are special for one reason or another, everybody's special. They really are. I hate to use that phrase. Everybody is special. Every single one of the DMs that I had run Giga Games for me, I learned their names. I learned their family lives. I learned their DMing styles. And I had one of the best run D&D halls in the state. And I got told this over and over at every other convention I went to. They go, wow, we love coming to your convention because you know that you run it and that you have the best run D&D hall. We never have a bad DM. Every single one of my DMs was absolutely special. Everyone brought something different and unique every single time. However, I had to treat every single one of them the exact same way, because as soon as you start making exceptions, everybody has to have an exception. And especially once money is involved, you can run into labor law violations and equal opportunity employment issues. So no, you cannot treat anyone differently. This is your basic rule of business. Business 101, everybody is always treated the exact same. Doesn't matter if you like them, you hate them. Doesn't matter what they look like, who they are, who their daddy is. You treat everyone the same. Until you get to like corporate level, and then you can break laws and do things as long as you have enough money for a good lawyer. You get away scot-free. But at the end level, you don't make exceptions. I have seen people in quite a few different businesses make exceptions for someone for some odd reason and never work again in that field because somebody made a complaint that turned into a lawsuit, and the average discrimination lawsuit runs, I want to say it's $120,000 before going to court. Yes, that's before the judge ever sees it. It costs the company $120,000. If you think anyone working anywhere is worth $120,000, you are wrong. So, as much as, again, I like the adventure. Apparently, the adventure has nothing to do with Panzer so I actually don't know his style from this, which saddens me. I really enjoyed looking at this as a style of these different authors. And I liked the style here. I thought it was really interesting. If he feels that this is not reflective of his style, I'm sad about that. I would love to see this is stuff that he does. However, if it is nearly as lore-laden as he describes it, I would probably never use his stuff because, again, I homebrew. And I would have an endlessly difficult time adapting it to my settings. So yeah, I've been talking for almost an hour. It's a drama of a video. Get over it. So my opinion about this, and again, everything is linked in the comments. Read his 2 posts. The article itself is like a 5-minute read. From belloflostsouls.net. So that you definitely should read. His stuff is a lot longer. I speed read, so I think I got through all of it in like 10 minutes, maybe. But it's a lot more. So if you don't want to read all of it, I understand, but I do recommend read all of it. See what he says. But my opinion, having worked with Wizards of the Coast, not in any official capacity, but going through the first steps before I was unable to continue. Having worked with Wizard of the Coast, having a lot of friends that have not only done what I've done, but have actually published quite a few adventures for the Adventures League. I believe he's made a mountain out of a molehill. And the biggest problem of all of this was he went into this with the expectation that he was going to be treated special. And he wasn't, and he's really, really upset about that. Now, again, this is not me targeting him specifically. I keep using his name because you're going to read it. So I can't really keep him anonymous. But this is an extremely common thing for inexperienced people in business in general. And I believe he mentions in here that he'd never done anything like this before. So yes, he was very inexperienced in this particular field. This is extremely common. I did it. When I got into management, I thought I was special, and I sure as hell wasn't. Because I was so unspecial, I was the lowest paid person in my position in our districts. And I had the highest sales number, or I was like top 5 in our district of all employees, not just all people in my position. I was in the top 5 of all the employees in our district, which was the busiest district in the company. I was the lowest paid because I thought I would be treated special. And so I didn't do things like negotiate my salary. I didn't do things like research what I should be paid. I didn't research labor laws or anything like that about what they were and weren't allowed to tell me I was required to do. And I got absolutely brutalized by that company. So yeah, this is extremely common, but that doesn't mean that Wizards of the Coast did anything wrong here. Like I said, that one of the uses, I think is borderline problematic. And the only reason I think that was because Panzerlion made a huge deal about it and explained everything to me. Again, I've got blind spots, so if I was a sensitivity reader for that, I would have missed that entirely. My particular sensitivity to the topic of expertise is mental health. And I have found quite a few things where I've gone, hey, listen, you can't say that. That's a really bad negative stereotype. So I'll catch that stuff immediately. But stuff like othering to the terms that were used in history in racial settings, I don't have experience with that. So I would have missed that, and I'm happy that he was able to point it out, so I can avoid making that kind of mistake in my own writing. However, this idea and all this stuff, especially the rules for writing for Wizards, is just spiteful. It is 100% just spiteful, and it's meant to portray Wizards as this horrible, abusive company that is going to trick you and steal from you and use your name to sell something that you never intended to sell, which is just 100% not true. What you should do is understand what it is that you're doing. When they give you rules, expect that they will follow those rules, that they're not going to treat you special in any way, shape, or form. And be proactive. One of the things that he mentions in there is that he just never heard back from them, which is, again, extremely common once you get to the playtesting process. If this is something that you are worried about them bastardizing your work, contact them. The biggest issue here is a lack of communication, and I don't think either side is really can say they are completely at fault, because I think both sides dropped the book on not communicating effectively about this. But as far as, do I think he should be asking that his name be taken off? No, it's pure spite. He's angry. He wants to punish them. This is the biggest way to do it, is say, I'm going to take my name off of it. I believe it's, and this is going to be a little bit childish, but Panzerlion, I'm so sorry, Panzerlion. If you are watching this, first of all, what are you doing with your life? You have much better things to do than listen to me stutter over and over again. However, thank you for watching my my worthless thing. But if you are watching this, this is getting petty, and it's going to end up hurting you a lot more than it's going to help you. The fact that your name is in an officially published book by a major RPG, by the largest RPG company in the world, is a big deal. And having them rip your name out because they didn't treat you the way that you expected to be treated is not going to help anyone. So don't do this. Really, really don't. It is just going to end up biting you in the ass, and making this big deal about it is just going to put a label on you that you are problematic to work with. Which I understand is already a really, really rough thing for any minority group. It is very, very easy to be labeled problematic, and I understand how offensive that term must sound to you. But I have a degree in business. I know how it works, and making huge stinks like this never helps. They're not going to react the way you want them to. And you're probably going to force them to double down. If you had taken care of this more quietly and more respectively, you probably could have gotten almost everything you wanted. They weren't going to add all your lore in because you probably shouldn't have ever written it. But you could have gotten them to not only remove the 2 out of almost 6,000 words that you didn't like. You probably could have gotten both of those removed with no issue. And probably could have gotten maybe not an apology, but an acknowledgement going, you know what, we did to change quite a few things. They might have even allowed you to release the full thing. But making a big stink like this, going online and telling people to don't make maps for adventures and write the absolute minimum physically possible to pass. No, you just burned a bridge with an extremely powerful and extremely useful business contact. So don't sit on this. To think about it for a while. Maybe make a statement later going, you know what? I meant everything I said, but it was said in the heat of the moment. There are better ways to phrase it, maybe. Because this is going to blow up in your face. For everyone else, I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit about this bit of drama. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do for the next segment of the D&D Deep Dive. If you have things that you want me to cover, classes, things like that, put them in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Otherwise, that's all for me, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.